You wonder why the world is in hell. All these people look so confused, they don't understand that something they call a simple government contract of our money is making these people feel like they got the biggest balls in the world because they feel like they've amassed the world's wealth in such a way that these clowns should never be remembered. They should never be remembered or never be seen again, especially these clowns like this. Look at these idiots. Said, oh, I don't know. Well, I'm a genius. No, you're not. You're a liar. You guys are all liars. This is called terrorism at its worst. Believe me, people, we need to wait for the day of the poor, which is coming, where all these people will be confounded. They're all going to be tested. Let's listen into this.
Like Mrs. Mark Zuckerberg, Amazon's Jeff Bezos, Google CEO Sundar Pichai, and Tesla's Elon Musk. As of recording this video, the combined net worth of these four people is over $700 billion. In fact, Mark, Jeff, and Elon are centi-billionaires.
Look at that.
Of course, the recent
The
stock
hell is
market
that?
dip may have wiped off some of their wealth, but these billionaires can still sleep easy enough at night.
No, they
People
can't.
with dozen-digit fortunes didn't exist 8 years ago. But now, according to the Forbes 2025 billionaire list, a record 15 people are on that list, and that's up from just 6 in 2023. When Forbes first made this list in 1987, they had to scrape to find individuals worth more than 28 billion.
Well, the
adjusted
day of the
for
poor is
inflation.
coming.
And all they could find were just 2 Japanese tycoons. And now today, that 28 billion amount isn't even enough to land you in the top 50 of that list. The trend is as clear as day. There's no stopping these billionaires. In 2024 alone, billionaire wealth surged by $2 trillion. That's at a rate 3 times faster than the entire global economy. And for the first time in history, the richest Americans now pay less tax than the working class. Something is clearly wrong. But what? It's not a question of why there's such inequality, but more a question of how this is all happening. Why are families struggling to buy cartons of eggs, while billionaires seem to keep adding to their wealth with absolute ease?
Well, it's simple. The reason why, we're going to continue just now. The reason why is these tech guys are the giant the Bible speaks of, meaning they're a bunch of clowns that don't understand economics, and the day of the poor is coming to take them all out.
What happens to the world economy if this trend keeps on going? Does the middle class cease
World
to
War
exist?
III.
And what can we do to fix all of this and not repeat the same
Civil
mistakes?
War.
Let's take a look.
War 3.
Indulge in a world of refined luxury.
It's crazy, man.
Explore the most captivating.
It's just nuts.
5 people are now on track to reach trillionaire status within the next decade. Elon Musk is first in line, followed by Amazon's Jeff Bezos, Oracle's Larry Ellison, Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, and LVMH's Bernard Arnault.
Whenever numbers like millions, billions, and trillions are discussed, it's often difficult to put the vast difference between them into context. So let's start there. If you, yes you watching, made $1 every second, you'd be a millionaire in 12 days. That's under 2 weeks. But how long would it take to reach $1 billion? 6 months? A year? Well, at a rate of $1 per second, every day, non-stop, you'd need over 31 years. And that's just for 1 billion. As we know, the world's richest have not just 1 billion, but tens, even hundreds of billions. And their wealth just keeps growing. For example, in 2024, their combined wealth skyrocketed from 13 trillion to 15 trillion in just 12 months. And the richest 10 men saw their fortunes grow by an average of 100 million per day. That's more than what entire villages or towns in some parts of the world will earn in a lifetime, every single day. And these guys, the billionaires, have been absolute vacuum cleaners of wealth over the past few decades. The top 1% alone has captured 38% of all new wealth created since 1995. And this is at the same time where the poorest half of the world's population, which is around 3.8 billion people, owns just 2% of global wealth. Think about that for a second. No matter how you look at it, these stats are staggering. The ultra-rich are clearly pulling further ahead, while half the world is effectively locked out of wealth. And it goes further. It's not just numbers on paper. This kind of money can warp economies, influence politics, and shape the world in ways that we can barely comprehend.
You don't see it much on TV. You don't hear it talked about here at all. But the American people do not believe that it's appropriate that three people, 1, 2, 3, Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, and Mr. Zuckerberg, 3 Americans own more wealth than the bottom half of American society, 170 million people.
And that's
all of the nerds behind you. Believe me, these people are clearly puppets. They're not billionaires, trillionaires. Believe me, these people can't even spend enough to feed themselves. They can't even make themselves not sick. They're so ridiculous. It's idioticness. This is what you call Santa's little helpers.
useless fact either. Massive wealth inequality usually comes before internal conflict, or more accurately, it's a symptom of a deeper problem.
When the government has problems funding itself, when there are bad economic conditions, and living standards for most people are declining, and there are large wealth, values, and political gaps, internal conflict between the rich and the poor, as well as different ethnic, religious, and racial
We're waiting for that
greatly
day.
increases. This leads to political extremism that
Political extremism? More like no more paying the rich, don't pay more rent, no more rent paying, no more bills paying. Just let everything grind to a halt, and you'll see these guys' wealth burn like the Joker's money, because they're all clowns.
shows up as populism of the left or the right. Those of the left seek to redistribute the wealth, while those of the right seek to maintain the wealth in the hands of the rich.
Ray Dalio, a billionaire investor and economic historian, puts it this way, quote, "I've studied the last 500 years of history and cycles, and these things repeat over and over again. Large wealth gaps with large value gaps at the same time, as there's a lot of debt and there's an economic downturn produces conflict and vulnerability. One of the biggest impacts the rising wealth gap has had is the shrinking middle class. The middle class is one of the hallmarks of a healthy economy, so when they shrink and start to falter, it's a symptom of a wider problem. It's been a slow process, but we all know, deep down, that something is going wrong." If you think back to the TV shows of the 80s and the 90s, it wasn't uncommon to find characters that lived comfortably on just a single wage. Life was portrayed as financially easy, and that's because relatively, it really was. But then things started to go wrong. When you really think about how the economy has been, since I left high school in the late 2000s, the middle class just couldn't catch a break. In 2008, there was the housing crisis, which turned into an international global financial crisis. Europe got a second wind of that disaster around 2011. In most of the Western world, the average Joe was hit by an economic bomb. Small businesses closed, jobs were lost, and households were struggling. Over the next decade, growth was permanently slower than before because the real economy had died, and I've covered that in detail in a previous video. But other than that, people were still getting by. But then came COVID. The government response shuttered entire economies, leaving everyday people straining themselves just to get by. And there's a famous saying,
Big pandemic.
question, what words do you never want to hear? Answer, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And this joke played out in real time when governments turned on the money printers to counteract their shutdown policies. They thought they were helping, but the result was yet another disaster. Now, today, we're left with...
See that robbery scheme? They turned on the money printers. And then the money printers became part of the whole fraud of taking the taxpayers' dollars. And then they want to call their money our money. Wow.
inflation,
God
stagnant
help us
wages,
all.
and soaring living costs. And the pressure is only getting worse.
Because this
The
is the
middle,
greatest
40%
battle that's
of the
coming.
global population owns
Believe
just
me, these
22%
people,
of global wealth.
they
But
can't
at the top
sleep
end
at
of
night.
town, it's exactly the opposite. Making money seems easier than ever before. As it turns out,
Nope.
all that government printing helped the stock market, which helped the billionaires. But we'll get to that in a bit. As the saying goes, wealth begets more wealth. So this acceleration will continue. But before we get into the weeds, we need to back up a little bit. How are these guys getting so rich? How does one even become a billionaire?
Hey folks, Donald Trump Jr. here with urgent news. The world's central banks are making unprecedented moves, and it's time for all Americans.
Nope. Don't listen to the so-called rich. Don't listen
Is
to
it ethical
anyone.
to be a billionaire? Well, that depends on your political leanings. But some individuals
Oh, God.
do indeed have a rags to
Listen to
riches story.
the Bible.
But the pleasantries start and end there. A growing number of billionaires tend to come through one of three routes: monopolies, inheritance, and corruption. According to Forbes, the most common way to become a billionaire is through finance. In fact, nearly 1 in 6 billionaires, or just over 15%, made their money in finance and investments. The second most common way is technology at 12%, and the third, manufacturing, also at 12%. But it's not just by hard work and innovation. Billionaires don't play by the same rules as the rest of us. And in this
Exactly. They come from inheritance from the taxpayers' dollars. And that means these clowns that work for Santa Claus are, in fact, the same people that we need to show how angry we are by praying for revenge against their whole entire understanding of their system that they support. Because the day of the poor shall be the most horrific whirlwind destruction of these people that are pretending they cannot be rounded up and put in one basket and shipped away forever. So therefore, many of these people in the world can see the example of the reward of the wicked.
we'll cover the three ways that this is the case.
That will come
Number one,
soon.
inheritance. In 2023, more new billionaires inherited their wealth than built it. Every single billionaire under 30 was born rich. The problem is, in a lot of cases, depending on where you are, there's no tax on this kind of wealth transfer. While the average person works decades to build financial security, billionaire families pass down fortunes, tax-free, and they keep their wealth locked up in an exclusive family club. Number two, corruption and loopholes. Many argue that the financial system is designed to protect the wealthy. Just look at the 2008 financial crisis. Banks made reckless bets, crashed the economy, and then got bailed out with billions in taxpayer dollars. It's capitalized the profits and socialized the losses. Meanwhile, millions of people lost their homes, jobs, and savings. And it's not just banks. The very top % of earners avoid taxes like a plague. They stash money in offshore accounts or borrow against their assets instead of selling them. And this means that they don't have taxable income. If I told you that in the US, for example, the richest 25 people in the country paid an effective tax rate of 3.4%, you'd cry foul. Why should the average person be taxed at 6 times more when they earn a tiny, infinitesimal fraction of what the billionaires earn? Well, although unfair, it's perfectly legal, and it's a bit of a rabbit hole. But hear me out. This is called the buy, borrow, die technique. Edward McCaffrey, the scholar who coined the term buy, borrow, die, says that this technique is being abused so much that it, quote, has basically killed the entire concept of an income tax for the wealthiest individuals, end quote. But he goes on to...
Yeah, because you're a demon. Demon coming up with some stupid, ridiculous economics understanding and making it witchcraft. You demons have to go.
That it's, quote, the most important tax avoidance strategy today, end quote. So here's how it goes. Instead of working a 9-to-5 wage and then getting taxed like a pleb, the best way to earn wealth is through accumulating appreciating paper assets like stocks. The wealth isn't taxed until these stocks are sold. Yes, a tariff surprise or another stock market shock may make the wealthy sweat a little bit, but overall, in the big picture, over the past few decades, you'd be doing well.
Imagine making.
Nope. That's it. We're gonna just pause them right there. We don't need to hear more about them. That was just a little presentation to show you the target of the poor. That's right. These faces are not the faces. We know the faces, and we know the people behind the scene of our tax dollars. And Lord and behold, the Lord sees everything, and he's about to create simple little problems that these rich people are going to not understand what's happening in their life and how much, if they can't explain the shit that comes between their legs when it comes out, how the hell can they explain the world's problem? I don't understand why are we going through this wickedness. But now I understand what the Lord says. We are living in the garden still, and this is the end of the wicked. The knowledge of good and evil. The end of the wicked is upon us, and that's all we're witnessing with these so-called super rich nerds that have no understanding of why they're rich, because their life is death, because they traded it in for riches, glory, fame in this world full of nothing but fiat currency. It's ridiculous. Anytime you see these guys, just look at them and say clown. That's right. And if you see anyone that wants to be like them, pray for them, because at the end of the day, people don't know why they want to be rich like these guys. Only when they get it, then they realize they can't sleep because you got a million robbers looking for you. Sucker.